Welcome to another episode of Darkening the Sun Radio, presented by Dream Nexus Podcast and Connector. I'm your host, Chris Abert, and I am here with Hope Medford. She's going to be playing a solo set at Darkening. She's a member of Medicine for the People. Say hello, Hope. How are you?
Aloha. I'm doing awesome. Really happy to be here. Excited to come out to Darkening of the Sun and revisit the Midwest. I was raised in the Midwest, and
Really?
so I have a lot of love for that part of the country. So it'll be exciting to bring some of my solo music as well as Medicine Crew.
Awesome. Super excited to hear your set there. So where in the Midwest did you grow up?
So I was actually raised in Kentucky, outside of Louisville. So I know a little bit about the humidity in August and that kind of thing. And yeah, right now I've been settled in Hawaii. Medicine kind of brought me out here after touring here many, many winters. And but I love to go back. So I'm excited to be back there this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm super jealous. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. I think it'll happen in the next few years here. So who knows? So
yeah, we'll welcome you out.
Yeah, cool. So your solo set. What do you feel like people can expect from what you're bringing there? You got a new album out, I noticed.
I do.
Yeah,
my new album is called Bring to Light, and it was actually a little longer. It was a couple years in the making because I was on Medicine tour and doing recording here and there with some of my favorite artists as we kind of hit those towns. And then I had a baby girl, and so it's been an exciting journey to kind of finish this album in the middle of that. And so Bring to Light is the name of the album, and a lot of the new stuff that I'm going to be doing is pretty fresh. It hasn't been seen that much before. So to create what I want to create on stage, which is the many layers of percussion that I play, of course, live in the studio, I'm going to be bringing a 5-channel looper so that I can bring a bunch of the different layers that I've created myself, but to be able to create them all at the same time is kind of the challenge of my music, because I am an instrumentalist and I am a percussionist primarily. So I've been kind of working on that and putting it together with some electronics to still have that live rootsy feeling of hand percussion. So yeah, it's fresh, and there will be a lot of stuff off my new album and a couple tracks off my last album before that called Purify, and I'm pretty stoked about it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm stoked about it too. I'm a percussionist as well, and I've been listening to your new album, and I really love your stuff. So I can't wait to see what you have to throw down, especially with the looper. I think that's really cool when percussionists mix loopers in there, because you can do a whole lot with it. So I'll be stoked for that. Are you going to jam around the campfire too?
I certainly hope so. I'll be there and I'll be ready. So we'll
cool.
see what happens.
Cool. I'm going to be bringing my drum too, so maybe we get to drum together. that'd be tight.
Awesome.
Cool. So yeah, I have another question for you. What does the eclipse mean to you?
Great question. I've really paid a lot of attention to the moon, particularly in its cycles, in my own kind of spirituality, I guess you would say. And the sun as well. The equinoxes and the solstices have kind of been my holidays throughout the years, where I've kind of gathered together with friends and held intentions for different parts of I guess our own human cycles. And so the eclipse is this amazing kind of unique thing that I've been researching it a bit this week, and saw that this type of eclipse, this full eclipse on North America, hasn't happened since like 1979. It's a powerful one for us. And what I feel and what I've seen into it is that it's a portal that's actually already begun with the full moon that just happened. And it's going to continue all the way until the new moon. So it's always, I think, good to see how things that happen in nature are fuller cycles that ebb and flow. It's not just 1 second and 1 moment of what we do, but it's a building towards it. And so we're already inside that portal, and we're building towards this gathering at Darkening of the Moon. Well, so many more people will come together. And so I see it as an opportunity, and certainly at this festival, whoever arrives and whoever chooses to show up and be the ones that are going to celebrate this together, we have that opportunity to then co-create an intention within this portal. And certainly my intention is creating more positivity and goodness for all of us to celebrate, and also this reconnecting with the earth, because I still believe in humanity's goodness. And I think so much of that comes through when we reconnect to the earth. And we recognize that the earth is our source, and it's also our source of creativity. So when we come together and create, like we will be with arts and music, it's kind of our highest incarnation and opportunity to invoke our highest self. So we're all going to bring it, whoever shows up. So I encourage those who are excited about it to show up in whatever way you can, with your heart open.
That was fantastically put. That was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's going to be a big one for everybody, and it definitely is a portal. Almost anybody I talk to, they kind of see it that way too. It's kind of something that we haven't seen for a long time and may never see for a very long time yet. So it's hard to describe kind of the feeling what we really have when we're really looking at it. What is that really? But it's something to be experienced for sure. So it's definitely good to be in the company of people that are really excited about it and that kind of look deeper into it and to find deeper insight to what it could possibly mean for us and how we could benefit from this type of an event. So that's great. That's super awesome. And
yeah,
that's,
and and just to say too that I think it's really cool to look into how eclipses have been seen and honored and recognized through millennia, probably by humanity. Like, this is an ancient thing that's not new. So how cool that is to think about our ancestors also gathering and celebrating and seeing these things and recognizing the power within them. So I think when these moments happen within our universe, that that it's an easy place to start seeing further beyond us and beyond this moment, and both into the past and also into the future when our children's children will be seeing the next one again. So yeah, I think of it as a portal in that way too, like through time, that these moments are really connecting us.
And I think that's awesome, and I think it's great that this event it's also kind of catered to honoring our ancestors. It's being sponsored by the Cherokee Nation, and the whole theme of it, is all about Native American spirituality and culture and their perspective on the frog, swallowing the sun for a short period of time. And there's others that can tell it much better than I can, but it's really an amazing story, and it's cool that we all get to kind of participate in that and honor that and remember it and get back to some of those roots. So it's really cool.
It is, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because the frog is one of my spirit animals, and it's funny because I don't normally talk to people that really see this frog as a spiritual being, but it was just something I always connected with as a kid, because growing up in Kentucky, we had tons of frogs in our backyard, and so they were always my little friends that I played with and carried around, and so it's really cool to see that frog spirit kind of coming through in this more epic time.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that is another thing too. Like, we don't tend to see the kind of hyper intelligent, almost like essence behind animals and animal spirits. It's really not really commonly talked about. It's kind of in some senses it's like overdone in some parts of spirituality and whatever, and in other parts it's kind of forgotten about, Right. But it's definitely important to honor these things and to try to remember relating to nature in these ways as well, which is also what this event is kind of pulling together, which I think is cool. So
yeah, well, and the beauty of it being an outdoor setting like this, my favorite venues to play music are always where I can look up at the sky and see the moon and see the clouds and see the stars and see the sun. And there's this other level of spirit that comes through when performing on a stage, when you are connecting to nature, that's just so different than if you're indoors at a theater venue. So it is exciting. There's more improv that I think comes through as the wind blows through, as you're talking, and as a bird calls in the sky. And the last gig I played with Medicine for the People recently this summer, as we were calling out Warrior People, that song, a hawk flew across and it was carrying a snake that was hanging from its mouth. It flew across above us in front of the stage, and we looked up, and me and Chase looked at each other and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. And it took us to like talk about it afterwards backstage. It was like, what just happened? I've never seen that. And then someone was mentioning there's a bird holding a snake hanging out of its mouth on the Mexican flag. Like, this is actually a very honored image that I had never seen before in my life. And just amazing how, you know, animals do respond.
Yeah, that's a really awesome story. And it's like they could be anywhere in your environment like that too. Like, you have a certain thought, or just like there's a relationship like that, and that you can look at it that way, or you can't, but it's a lot cooler to look at it that way. Usually it's more fun, and they can derive more meaning from it.
Yeah, nothing to lose. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so that's another thing that's cool about you. I've been checking out your bio and everything. You're like super heavy into art and environmental justice and social justice, and you've had an avid career with that, and you're involved in a few was it non-for-profit organizations?
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah, the Tryon Life community, and community farm, and Honor the Earth. Yeah. That's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was the co-founder of Tryon Life Community Farm, and that was a project in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon. It's a sustainability like demonstration site where we were teaching and practicing permaculture, as well as like environmental and social justice awareness to youth and at-risk youth. And it was a really awesome project, and I got really involved in teaching. I love working with people and with youth, and I was even bringing a lot of drums out there, and we were playing to the trees and to the gardens while the plants were growing, and talking about how music even inspires, you know, plants to grow bigger and stronger, and that's been scientifically proven. And just a lot of creative aspects within that project. And then, yeah, Honor the Earth is a longstanding nonprofit that was started by Winona LaDuke. And she is Anishinaabe, and she invited myself in, and then the year after invited Nako in onto the board of directors. And that project works primarily protecting lands on North America, Native American lands of many different tribes. So they're also doing a lot of sustainability projects with wind power. They do some solar, but wind is actually more accessible to where a lot of those tribes are. And then growing sustainable foods and cottage industries. And so some really creative projects there as well.
That's really cool. I'm definitely going to have to check them out some more, for sure. I'll definitely be looking into that. Yeah. Very cool. And so another thing that I thought was cool about with your drumming is you also practice it with like rhythm and birthing workshops, and you also were a midwife for quite a while. And do you still do that once in a while, or do you ever do that anymore?
You know, I am very passionate about supporting women, babies, and families, and I really love helping women in pregnancy. I love being at deliveries and helping create sacred, safe space for babies to be born. I very clearly see how when we birth, we're creating the next generation. And I've witnessed both sacred, simple home births and also more traumatic hospital births. And when you compare the two potentials, for me, I became very passionate about encouraging education for women to know what their options are. There's no right or wrong for any family or any woman, but there is a lot of potential that women aren't always made aware of how to have the most empowered experience, and to keep their baby as safe as possible and have a gentle birth. So yeah, I practiced as a home birth midwife out of hospital, and it was such a beautiful and passionate time in my life. And it's certainly hard work, but amazing work. And I often joke about the fact that after you attend so many births of new life coming through in that miracle, that getting on stage in front of a few thousand people is no sweat. And, you know, I would sometimes see other artists be nervous about getting on stage, but yeah, it just puts everything in perspective. It was always like, hey, this isn't life or death. This is, you know, awesome music. And so let's just have fun here. Having said that, I'll also say that accompanying Nako, I always had so much faith in him on stage as well, that it made me really confident the show would go off well no matter what happened. So a little bit of both is true there. But yeah, being a midwife is a character builder for sure. You know, I had to carry a heavy responsibility, and also just witness some of the greatest beauty that there is in life. So it's definitely made me who I am, and I love carrying that passion into my rhythms. And I have taught classes on incorporating music and rhythm and even drumming into pregnancy and even labor. And there are ancient birth rhythms that have been used all the way back to Egypt that were used in labor. This is ancient technology, ancient medical technology, the drum in the birth room, you know, as well as drums have been used to heal all kinds of conditions. So it's been exciting to kind of just kind of unveil that aspect of music. And music therapy is really beyond what we first imagined it. There's this, if I can keep going about this topic, it's fascinating to kind of learn what they call entrainment. You know, when one person feels good and another person comes around them, they'll often feel good, right? Mm-hmm. And there's like, when there's one rhythm going and you come around it, you often start moving to that rhythm, right? So it's called entrainment when you start to pick up the frequency of something around you. And so it's fascinating to use music or to use a drum beat and say, if somebody's biorhythms are out of balance, then if you bring in a rhythmic pattern that's in balance, that person who's out of balance will start to alter frequency and come into balance. Mm-hmm. So it's a very simple concept that's been used for centuries, but it's exciting to really consider the potential of more creative aspects to healing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super fascinating. I drum in a group, and we do these shamanic drum healings and meditations, and I've firsthand witnessed experiencing like the feeling of giving healing to somebody through an instrument, like right there with them. And we had somebody mention to us before, have you thought of doing these for natural births? And we had all like, hadn't even thought of it before. And like, so that came up, and now you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, this actually might be something really cool to pursue. So no, that's magical. That's awesome. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with birthing specifically, it's such a vulnerable time for a woman that, you know, it's all about like, you know, meeting her where she's at so that she also feels safe and comfortable and relaxed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know one friend that brought like 3 drummers to a woman's birth who wanted that, and they actually sat in the next room and played to her so that she could still have her privacy but could be listening to them the whole time. That's which is cool. Another perspective. You know, there's a lot of ways to do it. But there's certainly a difference between live drumming and pre-recorded, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's
absolutely. It's like the energy of the drummer and everything. But I'll definitely keep that in mind, though, about going in the other room to drum birth. That's interesting. That's a good thought. That's a good bit of advice. Mm-hmm. Cool. So yeah, you've been playing percussion for over 20 years. It said in your your bio there. That's quite a long time. So what got you into playing percussion?
You know, I was naturally drawn to it for no good reason as a
Hmm.
as a small child. I remember just asking my parents. I mean, by sixth grade, I was asking for lessons. So, and being raised in Kentucky, I never had seen women drummers, nor had I seen a djembe. So they took me to the only music store that we knew, and they started me off on like snare drums, you know, for a drum kit. And it wasn't, I was not as passionate about that, I have to say. Like playing with sticks is not what's really hooked me, but it was when I started, you know, playing with my hands that I really became in love. But yeah, just one thing led to another. I was around music, and then I finally did see my first djembes and African hand drums. And then I met a gentleman who was the head of a band called Prana that was all world music and instruments, didgeridoo, 3 or 4 different kinds of hand drums. It was an array of instruments like gongs from kind of around the world, and I fell in love with that, and I started going to every practice and just watching them. And I think it took me a little while to think, oh, maybe I could actually do this. And then I went to this store that had African drums, and the gentleman there was from Africa, and he said that this particular drum was made by a master drummer from this village in Africa. And I was like, Mom, that's the one I want. And, you know, and it was interesting because she was really supportive, even though she'd never really been around that type of thing. And once I had that drum, I played it every day for the first few years. I would take it out in nature and play with the trees and play with the birds. And I would often sleep with it at night, like put my arm around it as I slept. I mean, I was passionate about my drum, and it was a very special drum. Like that man said that he sold it to me. You know, it was that particular drum he thought was a pretty rare drum. And that's the thing about African drums, or handmade drums. It's the spirit of the drum maker, as well as the spirit of that tree, as well as the spirit of that animal whose skin it was made out of. Those things are connected, and so every drum is completely unique. And I developed this deep relationship with that drum that really took me a long way. And it was my primary drum for probably about 7 years. And but yeah, then I started going to bonfires, because that's where I saw drumming happening. Like you said, around the fire is a very comfortable place for me. And I went to some rainbow gatherings and just started seeing large groups of sound and drums and shakers, and just kind of got involved. And, you know, I really enjoyed that in the beginning. And then that led me to West African dance classes, where there's a lot of like West African traditional drumming being shared word of mouth and taught oral tradition. And I did that for a number of years, learning a lot of different traditional rhythms and songs. And then was a part of a couple different performance groups before medicine. But it was a journey. And I honestly always considered myself as playing drum as more of just my personal journey or my spiritual journey, and had never considered it a path towards a profession. I'd studied a little bit of music, you know, some piano classes, a couple classes in college, but didn't see myself on a track towards becoming a professional performer. It was really the journey of meeting Nako and Max Ribner, who was playing with him when we first met, and collaborating in the beginnings of Medicine for the People. And as soon as I met them, I met them around the fire. They actually came out to Try on Life Community Farm, that farm that I told you I helped start. And they came we had once a month a big community bonfire, and they came there one night, and I was drumming around the fire, and they saw me drum. And Nako immediately just exclaimed, like, "We've got to play together. We've got to do this. What are you doing tomorrow?" And we had our first practice the next day, and our first gig that week. And me and Max, the three of us, were basically Medicine for the People for the next like 3 years. It was a trio. And we played at least, 3 days a week. And it just started like that quick. And, Nako had already written a number of those songs, and Max and him had met in Hawaii before that moment, but they had both just returned when we met. And so, yeah, it really grew and took off pretty quickly. But yeah, it always goes back to the fire, and that's my journey with medicine too.
Wow, that's so special. That's just a perfect setting to meet Nako and start that journey with them and everything. That's beautiful. That's one thing that's really I found about drumming to be really interesting, is it does really kind of catch you by surprise at different times. And like I can empathize with you, like your early beginnings with percussion. Like that's kind of what mine was too. I was in band in like 5th grade, and I got a snare drum, and I didn't practice all the time because I got kind of bored of just always doing the same thing all the time. But I got involved in this drumming group over this past spring, and I've been playing my flute I'm a Native American flute for a little while before that, and just starting to get into more indigenous music and like really like thinking about actually playing it. And then randomly I got invited to a drumming group, and I just ended up drumming with them in it. And like it was supposed to be kind of like a performance thing. I just got invited to play in it. I was like, okay. And I started from there. It was just completely unexpected. And I've been playing, like we've been doing these meditations and stuff, and it just hopped right in it. So it's amazing when you hop on the drum, when you take that initiative to do it, even though you might be a little bit scared to think, I can't drum. Okay. What am I, and then you close your eyes and we're like, oh, like it's a spirit that shut up, just deal with it, and just go through it. And it's, I don't know, I was explaining earlier that like to one of my friends that like, drumming is nice because it's a repetitious kind of action that you can like really trance into and get into a flow into, just like, I mean, playing anything or doing most of anything, but you really have to kind of get into a flow for it to sound good. You know what I mean? Like you have to really let go. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
And, and the other thing I think about it, because you can trance out like that with this instrument, it really, like you say, it really is something that you can let your spirit flow through you. And I feel like it's like meant for that, right? And I think when your spirit does flow through you, the drum really takes you places. Like it's an amazing tool. I feel like it's the drum itself and my relationship with like sharing my voice through the drum that helped me, to meet Nako guys, and for our journey to, go so far, so fast. And, it's the drum is a voice that resonates, but also strengthens or increases your personal vibration or frequency. Mm-hmm. And so when you put something positive and powerful into a drum, it's being multiplied, 10-fold or 100-fold through the power of that drum, not just the sound, but also the energy that's in that drum. It's an amazing tool. And I do believe that, and I have experienced that. I feel like, beautiful things have unfolded in my life that felt kind of uncanny. And sometimes I look back and I think it's because of all those years I've spent putting good intentions into drumming. Mm-hmm. And even if it's just in your room at home or, in nature, like the earth is listening, and, you get back what you give. And so yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And then I also wanted to add something else when you were asking me a little bit about my story with the drum, because I also left out another piece, which was at one point I had the opportunity, I was invited to go work in West Africa and help deliver babies over there, and also help kind of teach student midwives. And so I primarily said yes because I really wanted to get over there and meet the drummers. I was also really happy and grateful to work with the midwives, but it was an opportunity that unfolded both for me. And so I got to work over there at a birth center and, connecting with the root of the culture through the women birthing and their next generation, but then also met a master drummer and his family and got to live with them for a little while and got to study drumming with them in their home and with their extended family. Sometimes our family jams would have like 7 or 8 big African men, and it was the master drummer and his 2 brothers and his father and his 3 cousins, all playing all the different parts. And, me and my friend that came with me in the middle of it. And, the energy and the spirit of the land of Africa definitely were imbibed within that experience, as well as it gave me the opportunity to talk to. I sat down and spoke with his father one night, and I said, what do you think about me drumming? And he said, well, until 1 generation ago, the only people that were allowed to even touch a djembe were men that were born into a lineage of djembe players. Anyone else even touching these djembes, it was considered bad luck, bad juju, and also the only people making djembes were men that were born into lineage of making djembes. And so you had these long bloodlines of father to son skills being passed down. So this djembe making skills are very specific and sacred, and these djembes all held that energy. And now we've shifted into this next generation of a lot of other people are making these djembes, and a lot of other people are playing djembes, right? And so I said, well, why are you letting me, a white girl, come into your home then and are teaching me djembe play? And he's just said, it's different now. It's all changed just in this generation. And but the fact that he, that I was there with them and they offered that to me, was still, obviously it was a gift. And I should back up and say, before I went to Africa, I had the opportunity to meet Babatunde Olatunji. And he was the first man to actually bring djembes to North America. And so when I met him, he was already in his 70s. I took a 5-day intensive class with him and his family, and he said, take the djembe and go forth and spread it to as many people as possible. And so again, it was that gift from this African man of, it's okay if you're a white girl, you deserve to play this instrument. So I really feel like from both of those experiences, it really empowered me on a drum. And I think it was because of this unique time in the world that was even possible. Having said that, it really aligns with this older Native American prophecy that said there would be a time about now when women would take back the drum, is what was said. And it doesn't mean that men wouldn't play anymore, but it meant that there would be a time when women would need to be drumming. And I think that was, it was seen that women used to drum a lot more in their culture, and then they gave the drums to the men, and the men took that voice for a long period of time. And that now we're coming, and we are back in that time when women are supposed to take back the drum, and their voices are meant to be heard now. I think it's to create more balance on this planet. So all of these different moments and things, I feel them really deeply, and they've been inspirations to me to feel like it's important to, drum for your heart. It's also important to drum as a woman, and it's important to share that and to be an example for other women, because globally, women's voices have been oppressed over the last few centuries in a way that it's important to move past that and really encourage this global balance of masculine and feminine. So through drumming and being on stage, it's been this really cool opportunity to be an example of that, and then to hear from so many different families. I get these pictures of like little girls like 4 and 5 and 6 years old, like, hey, my daughter wants to be like you, she's already drumming. And I've gotten a lot of messages like that have been really exciting and heartwarming to imagine, okay, yeah, we all just need a role model, right? And so it's cool to see what the next generation is going to be like.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I think you are an excellent role model for all of that as well. I think that you definitely, I don't know, like that's so cool to be a person who is walking like with that, as you know, with everything that you're involved in, with all of your environmental projects, with your music, with everything, and to be a powerful female voice at a time when women of all ages definitely need them. They need ones that get it, you know, and you definitely get it. So that's awesome, and it's just great. You're doing awesome, man.
Thank you. You too.
I love it. It's super needed. It's super relevant, and I think it's really cool that we are like living in this time where everything is kind of coming back into balance. It does seem like it, you know. There's a lot of energy on both sides, but I think ultimately it's coming back together, and you're a part of that, absolutely, you know. So it's an honor to be able to have you on here to speak your truth about that, because part of it is also people to recognize that narrative and that story that's happening, and that these things are important, you know, because you can turn on your TV and they will tell you all these things that are important, you know, for you to believe in. Not knocking all TV, but you know, right. It's these kinds of stories, these kinds of perceptions are important for people to take in, to look around and really care about those forces, and to see all this stuff is real. You know, it's not just, we can just talk about it with our friends and then go back home and not really care, but no, it's important, you know. And I commend you for continually reminding people with the passion and vigor that you do. That's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. Cool. So I won't take up too much more of your time, just maybe a few more questions for you.
Okay.
I think we've already kind of gotten into this with the events. It's sponsored by the Cherokee Nation. It's also by the Clearinghouse. Have you heard of that organization at all?
No, I haven't.
They pretty much take in young girls and women who've been in abusive relationships or have been victims of sex trafficking and things like that. So there's some really cool organizations that are kind of surrounding this event, and just the energy of this. I think that kind of reminded me of that organization with what we were talking about restoring that balance, because it's kind of like getting everybody back to the table and kind of an even perspective of understanding of one another is super important. And we have to have events, or we have to have information out there, and just like a certain energy out there of that this stuff is important. We need to really look at these things, because this stuff goes on without anybody saying anything. And okay, we can talk about it, but what are we going to do about it? You know, we keep coming back to this discussion, you know, and I think it's cool that we have events like these to be able to, okay, we can also have the discussion here, but this is a way we can, you know, actually like raise money for these types of things, get more people involved in them, find out how we can get more hands on deck. That's what's mostly important, is getting people involved. So
that's right. Thank you for saying that. It's absolutely true. And it's so much more meaningful when you have a gathering to then direct people towards something they can do to be involved and make a change and work together. And that's what I think everybody really wants. So, so I commend you guys for really incorporating that in this festival. I think a lot of festivals forget that, and it's a wasted opportunity. So I really appreciate that. And also I appreciate the particular organizations you guys have chosen are obviously close to my heart too. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And I'm sure that everybody else appreciates it very much too. Yeah, cool. So let's see. I think I had one more. Let me look back here. Oh yeah, you've got you have a healing arts business yourself. It's called Artemis Healing Arts. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's very much in process right now. I really believe in not getting bored and staying creative
Hmm.
for all of us. So I kind of work between multiple projects and keeping my passion fresh. So right now, Artemis is it's a project that I'm creating online because I am living in Hawaii right now. I'm working on music a lot of the time. I'm currently a co-founder of a new women's festival, music festival. It's in its third year. It's going to be in January. It's called Manifest.
That's
Mana,
awesome.
yeah, thank you. Mana is a word. It's a Hawaiian word that means power or spiritual power. And but we also like that it's Ma. So it includes men, but it features female artists and female musicians. It's every January. So that's another project I'm working on. I'm also a painter, and so I'm starting a new body of work currently of paintings. But Artemis is something that I started years ago before I even met Medicine for the People, and it's now coming back around in an online form. So how it started was actually I was creating a workshop series and facilitating classes on holistic approaches to women's health and natural birth. So using the information and knowledge that I had as a midwife and taking it from a creative perspective. So we were incorporating music, singing, the arts, as well as hands-on healing modalities, and teaching these different holistic approaches to health. And also preparing a woman in pregnancy for that powerful rite of passage, giving birth. So now I've been working on putting this online and actually creating an online education program for holistic approaches to pregnancy and birth. So I'm about 4 or 5 months into the process, but I definitely have a little ways to go. I didn't even realize, there's so many aspects to creating an interactive education system that's still exciting and beautiful. So I've had some friends out here helping me and definitely put some love into it. But the first step that I did was I interviewed 30 different experts in the field of women's health and natural birth. And so I have some amazing footage that I took around the United States and some internationally. And that's why I'm familiar with this Zoom as well, and because we did some of it online. But yeah, so it'll be many women's voices, experts beyond my experience, but I'll be the facilitator and weaving it together from a creative, holistic perspective. So that's where Artemis is right now, and you'll probably hear more about it in about a year, I'd say. So I'm trying not to pressure myself. I'm really learning and trying to embody what the Hawaiians call the art of non-exhaustion. So, I have things to learn. That's part of why I'm here. And when you're working online or doing video editing, as anybody knows who's in that world, you can really push yourself. And so I'm pushing, but then I'm resting, pushing and resting. So, and taking time and moving through my other creative projects. So in and out. But yeah, I would say in about a year, you'll probably hear the next level of Artemis. Another project I have that's very close to finished is I've actually made like a 2-hour how to drum DVD.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool.
Thank you. So so it includes techniques on the djembe and cajon both. So the cajon
I definitely want to get that.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So that's very close to finished. So projects in the works, always coming out. So that's where I'm at.
That's a good place to be. In the creative space. Yeah, definitely. And then that's super important. Learning your boundaries as a creator is like knowing when you're pushing yourself too far, when you're going to gas yourself, because then you don't get anything done, But yeah, I wish I could stay in Hawaii to figure that process out for myself.
Hopefully you can get it from here.
Yeah, I was trying to soak in all the good vibes from you from that. Yeah. Yeah, and your art too. So there was one quote I thought that was really cool from, I think it was from your bio. Yeah, it was your blog about your art. No, it was your bio. It was your bio.
Uh-huh.
It says she often combines rich color and lines, poetry, and textures of natural earth elements to tell the story of her journeys and create worlds seen through her dreams, travels, and visions. I thought that was really cool. That was really um, really terse, like the way that was pulled together. So after kind of learning more about you, I can imagine that. And I haven't seen a ton of your art yet, but I definitely want to see more. And I can only imagine like all the connections to the different journeys. And I don't know, it's funny talking to like a musician who's also an artist, because I do that as well. And it's interesting. There's like a point where things start to kind of blend together a little bit between your dreams, between your art and your music, and just a lot of your pursuits in general. But like there's something really specific about art and music together, and especially with dreams. I don't know, like and this is something that my podcast I talk a lot about, is like the nature of our dreams and reality, and how they're a reflection of one another. And in my opinion, there's really no inherent difference in it. It's just a matter of your perspective on it. So I would like to ask you, what is your perspective on dreaming, reality, the mingling of them both, and in respect with art and music?
Wow. Well, yeah, that's a great question, and it's a big question. But I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I've always been a very rich dreamer. So you definitely nailed it when you put that together for me as well as yourself. I think we have that in common. I've always, dreamed a lot of rich imagery, and sometimes I feel like it's intuitive and kind of showing me something or leading me towards something. Even my daughter's name I got in a dream, and then I woke up and I was like, that's her name. It's like came to me really clearly. But it's interesting because there's different times in my life when I have more spiritual dreams, I guess is the best word for it. And there's other times when my dreams are more mundane. And so I also look at that of like, what can I be doing and choosing in my life where, if my dreams are rich, I feel like my inner life is probably very healthy and rich. And so paying attention to, I feel like, for example, last night was one of those nights where I had this like dream where this like guru visited, or I was visiting a guru didn't visit me, but, and I woke up and I was like, this is going to be a better day. I was like, it's been a little while since I've had, a really aligned kind of rich dream. And I think that's because of having a baby girl. You don't get as much sleep too. But having said that, when I do sleep, I wake up more often, and then I can remember my dreams. So there's always a silver lining to that. But yeah, I've always described myself as a dreamer and as a rich dreamer, and that I use those dreams to help me make decisions in life. And so I agree. I think there's something about having a very rich imagination and also a very visual imagination, and translating those things onto the canvas, and then just tuning into that muse, that I really feel like that creative force, the more any human opens to a creative force, you find more joy. And it doesn't matter what you're creating. It's that energy of creation that once it starts to open, you can use it in any direction you want. It's the same energy that your inner muse. And so I feel like the more creative you allow yourself to be, the more creative energy you can put into the food that you cook, and the massage that you give, and the conversation that you have. And suddenly then you're doing painting and music and video and podcasts. And because it's all that same energy and that flow. And, I feel like when I traveled with medicine for the people to Bali, Indonesia, we started touring over there. It was the first time I saw a country where it looked like every single person was an artist. Every elder and every child was sitting on the front porch making something beautiful that they were going to go sell. And there was whole villages that were woodworkers, and villages that were painters, and villages that were carvers, and people looked happy, and there was this overall vibrancy. And I reflected on that and felt into how in the United States they say maybe like 40% of people are depressed or on antidepressant medication. And you know, and in our culture, artists are marginalized and not financially supported very much. And then there's a huge number of the population that I think turn off their creativity to do a job that they don't want to do to make the money that they feel like they have to make to pay the rent, to pay the bills. I mean, there's no one to blame, but it is a situation where I feel like people are not able to, or are not choosing to tap into their own creativity. And so they're losing that joyful life force energy and connection to source that being creative brings. So I'm passionate about just trying to raise awareness about that, because I think people don't realize when they're sad or depressed that the best thing they can do is just, you know, pick up an instrument or pick up a brush or try something they've never tried and just free your own expectations and, you know, get creative in any way and just start to open up that spirit that's bottled up inside that wants to, you know, wants to be free. You know how that is. So
I'm so glad you said all that. That's so awesome, dude. That's very well put, because there is kind of a situation here where, you know, engaging in the creative process, like you were saying before with the dreaming, and that's where I've really started to notice this, is with the dreaming, when you can be more aware of that creative energy that you're dealing with there, it makes you more aware of that, like that's creative energy. It's literally creator energy, and you become more aware of like how to work with that to start a process and have it kind of come out in a certain way. It's just like, it's like you start to work with like a feeling. It's like a sense of process. Yeah. And when you can then ground that into a work of art, like a painting or whatever, or a song, or like you actually have taken and like carved that out of nothing, basically, just by engaging in that creative kind of giggle, you know? So and when you have things in your environment that don't make you want to dream, or make you not really so much care about them, because they're reflections a lot of times of things you don't like about yourself. If you're making choices to not engage with your creative spirit and your spark and all of that, which can make you depressed. Like, and a lot of us, we work so hard that we don't get to engage in that, and we don't want to look at that. But that's really the root to a lot of what's going on with us, is we don't get to play enough. We don't get to create and have fun. That's what we do, you know? And that's what I think is really interesting about, especially talking to people that have traveled around the world and outside of the United States, to see how people are in other countries and how they just are in daily life, not like all the exceptions or the superstars, or it's just how people are. They tend to be working with their hands more, just doing things more. They're not always on their phone. They're not always these stereotypical things that people say about us. So why do they say them? Well, there's maybe some inherent truth behind, you know, getting together and creating and just engaging in that process and getting inspired to do that. And that's why I love festivals, because that's actually what it did for me. It was like, that's how the drum came back to me, was music festivals. It was my first festival that I went to. It was the first drum circle I ever did. I just hopped in. I was like, this is amazing. I have to do this. And I played all night. Never have I ever danced in a drum circle. I danced for hours. I was like, this is like a new me. And then the next festival I went to, I was kind of pressured again, and it was kind of not sure about playing the drum. It was a djembe, and it just kept coming back to me. It's like, nah, just get on the drum. And every time I'd get on, everything was great. Everything was groovy. Awesome. You know, and that's the thing with creativity and with a lot of this stuff, is like, it's almost like in some senses it's like addicting to be sad, or like you want to like keep doing things to make yourself sad or whatever, or not get out of it because it's hard, you know. But right. It's hard to also do the thing that's going to make you feel better. But usually if you start moving in that direction, you feel better a lot faster than you would just having to like let something happen to you or something force you to kind of have to make yourself feel better than just making the decision to do it. And part of that is like, you know, just hopping on the drum, just deciding to pick up the brush or whatever, like you were saying. It's just that one little quick choice. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And that's the biggest thing is the expectations. People think that like they've got to play better than the last time they played every time they play or paint or do anything. Right. And they just have so many expectations for themselves and set themselves up to fail that maybe going on that weird jag with this part of the song or this paint or this whatever actually may end up being your next big genius thing that you think is stupid and you're judging it in the moment.
That's right.
You know,
cooler.
Right. But that's by showing up to it again and again, then you learn, oh wait, hey, this is not just some weird squiggle. I can turn this into a masterpiece no matter what it is. And that's that creative flow, that creative energy is. You can start to transmute a lot of different situations around you and start to be kind of more of an operator like you, where you're like, you know, like doing things to like help also advance that mind state and that perception and that coming out of your shell kind of process. And that's a big thing that drums did for me, was help get me out of my shell and just express myself. Dang it, you know? So it's really inspiring to be talking to you about it, because you're a person who has hopped on it and then went all over the world and had these amazing adventures. And I'm just a person here just now hopping on it, I could see things looming. The group that I've been drumming in, we're starting to get more shows and different things. There's more opportunities. I'm like, something's up here. So it's just synchronistic and interesting to be talking to you about it. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, go for it. You know, as long as you're enjoying it, go for it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
You know, I wanted to draw just real quick. I wanted to say, because relating to all those things that you just said, it reminded me. I have a lyric in one of my new songs that just goes. It says, "Dreaming in this ancient wisdom, call of the moon, echoes of our ancestors come through our wombs." And it kind of ties all these things together of just like, you know, dreaming things in, you know, dreaming in the ancient wisdom of the past. It's like, as we dream, it also opens that portal where things can come in. And then call of the moon, it's like connecting with the eclipse, with the moon, with the sun, you know, like feeling those calls. And then echoes of our ancestors come through our wombs. It's going back to we're birthing the past and the future generations, like bringing all these things together. The ultimate act of creativity, of course, is birthing another human life, and but allowing that creative energy to come through. So yeah, I just wanted to share that lyric because it's fresh off the new album.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's super awesome. That's another thing that's kind of interesting too, is like we are here at this kind of, I mean, we're always at this birthing process with our race. Like we're always being born, but we're definitely at the edge of something really big. And it's really cool to like, you know, for you, like as an artist, for you to be like writing about some of these things as they're happening, kind of, you know, and like even your music kind of tying into like with the eclipse, like what you just said, like that is a piece of history, you know, and that's really cool. Like that there are people alive and around this time that are investing a lot of their time, energy, art, creativity into like, hey, this is important, you know, for these reasons, you know.
It unifies us all, and that's why it's so great that we're coming together. Super excited to show up and be a part of Darkening of the Sun.
Yeah, me too. So is there anything you would like to say to your fans and friends and family that'll be out there?
Well, I really hope to see you on the dance floor, because that's the best way to open up and let creativity through, is to move your body.
I agree.
And, you know, I guess I'll just say that I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be here. It's such an awesome event, and looking forward to meeting everybody involved. If you want to follow some of my future projects, you can find me at hopemedford.com. So that's easy, HOPEMEDFORD. And stoked to be playing again with Nako guys and Medicine for the People folks. And, you know, those are my bros. And it's going to be beautiful to be in this portal with you guys and reconnect in that place and in that space for all the right reasons. So thank you, and so much more to come. But respect to you, and may this be a beautiful, powerful, positive experience for all of us.
Thank you very much. I super appreciate that. Awesome. I'm sure your fans and everybody there will too. I'm stoked. This is like, it's so crazy. It's just like right here next, or this week. Wait.
I know. I'm going to see you in just a day.
I know what's going on here. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I super appreciate you spending your time and just sharing how awesome you are. So thank you very much. And I'm stoked to see you at Darkening. It'd be an honor to get to play drums with you. I'm definitely gonna bring my drums, and I got a didge, and you play flute too, don't you? I play Native American flute, so maybe we can get down. That'd be cool.
All right, awesome.
Alrighty. Well, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay, see you there.
All right, see ya. Aloha.